The wrong team is favored in Norman, Oklahoma this weekend, and South Carolina is winning this football game. I explain why in only a way I can. Deep dives and vivid detail. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, guys? It is Thursday morning. It is 11 o'clock, and we are in part one of two episodes we have coming today. I missed one yesterday, but I appreciate you guys joining along. I'm your host, Chris Marler, and welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. It is fantastic to have you along, and we are brought to you. Well, first and foremost, let me say thank you to our listeners and our each and every one of our listeners that make Locked On Gamecocks your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we are a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to catch my breath. I'm already out of breath here, guys. We're a minute in. I am fired up. I'll tell you who else is fired up. Our friends at FanDuel. You guys have heard me talk about this a bunch, but make sure you get on over to FanDuel. Your first $5 bet, $5, gets you $200 in bonus bets. That is at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. That is $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Let's get into the game. I'm fired up. I am fired up about this game for a number of reasons, but I told you this on Tuesday's episode. The wrong team is favored. The wrong team is favored in this game. This line opened at Oklahoma, I think, at -4. Now, there's like 8 SEC games this weekend. You guys know I love talking about the betting lines because, like a lot of people always say, they didn't build those massive, massive billion-dollar cathedrals and casinos out in the middle of the desert off of losing, right? But I tell you that to tell you that Vegas is wrong about this. And I think they're starting to see it because there are 8 games in the SEC this weekend. 4 of them have seen significant line movement of at least 1.5 throughout the first 3 days of the lines being open. The one that has had the biggest sway and shift and pendulum change in the lines is South Carolina, Oklahoma. This line opened at Oklahoma -4 on Sunday. It has trickled down all the way to -1.5. Now, you got to think about this too. In college football especially, having home field advantage is a massive deal. It's a massive deal that it sways like I believe it sways the line by like 6 to 7 points at least. I think in the NFL it's 3 to 4. But in college football, home field advantage is a big deal. It's a really, really big deal. And South Carolina, a team that before this year has really struggled on the road under Shane Beamer. Not really the case this year, right? You saw it going into Kentucky. They win by 25 points. You saw it in Alabama. Had a chance to win that game. I did go back and look at some of the video. Some of the audience was telling me to go check out, and there was a man wide open in the flats. That's a game that could have gone either way, and it could have gone South Carolina's way, and they could be going into this game in Norman. Oh, excuse me, with a lot different of a what's the best way to put it? A lot different mindset going into this. But here's the thing, man. I'm telling you this right now. This team, I just realized I also spelled Thursday wrong in the thing here on the side. It's just Thursday episode, part 1. We'll get that fixed for part 2. Oklahoma should not be favored in this game. Oklahoma is really bad offensively. And you guys have heard me talk about this with South Carolina. You heard me talk about it last week in the deep dive. And we've already gone out here and apologized to what do you call it? We've already apologized to Dowell Loggins and Shane Beamer and gone into the reasons why they were able to fix some of the problems that you saw last week going into that Alabama game, especially offensively. This is an offense that has been not great for South Carolina at times. And it was really bad against Ole Miss, and it caused me to overreact. It caused a lot of people to overreact. But they fixed it, in my opinion. And we'll see what happens this week in Norman. But they seemingly fixed it. And they did a much better job. Lenore Sellers comes out against a defense that had been really good at times. You look at the first half of that Georgia game. Look at most of the first part of the season. A defense that had done a really good job. They turn you over. They get this was for Alabama. They were getting pressure to the quarterback, all sorts of stuff, and they still were able to get some pressure against a tough offensive line or for a bad offensive line for South Carolina. But man, like Lenore Sellers goes out there and has his best day as a passer, probably in his career. His best day as a passer. I thought he looked great. And again, they came right out of the gate swinging and throwing the football. Threw on the first 2 downs. He was 6 of 7 for 62 yards to start the game. Finished the game with like a 74% completion percentage. Like these are all things that Lenore Sellers has not done. And he was able to do. Now you look at Oklahoma. And here's the thing. I have heard this repeatedly from Oklahoma fans throughout this season, right? They have been in my mentions for most of the year because I have said from the beginning, I was like, this is not the Big 12. This is a much different situation you're going to find yourself in. This is not the Big 12. But they have come into this league. They had to replace an entire offensive line. They lost their their top 5 wide receivers. They went to Auburn without their top 5 wide receivers. And they were able to come away with a win on that thanks to turnovers. Because they do have one of the best defenses in the SEC. They have the best in turnover margin and turnovers forced with 14 total. But here's the thing. South Carolina also turns you over. They're second, tied for second in total turnovers forced this season. They forced like 12, I think. This is a team for Oklahoma that is really, really bad offensively. I told you all the numbers a week ago for South Carolina, how bad they were. Oklahoma's worse. Oklahoma's worse than South Carolina's numbers were, not even after the Alabama game, but before the Alabama game. Okay? And I'll get into some of these numbers. Listen, they rank 125th in the country in total yards per game. They rank 128th in yards per play, 101st in rushing yards, 112th in yards per rush, 123rd in passing yards. I mean, are we starting to understand? Like they're 90. Listen, out of the 4 major statistical categories, total yards, passing yards, rushing yards, scoring offense, so points per game, they rank in the top 100 in one of them, points. And they rank 96th. 96th. Think about the Oklahoma teams of the past. Like that's what these that's what these fans in Norman wanted you to believe was going to transfer over this year. You lost your offensive coordinator, Jeff Lebby. He goes to Mississippi State. You, for some reason, let Dylan Gabriel walk because you have Jackson Arnold coming in, former 5-star. I think he was the number 1 dual threat quarterback in the country coming out of high school. He's the next in line. We have seen this from Oklahoma quarterbacks forever. Go back to Landry Jones even. And then it was Baker. And then it was Kyler. And then it was Jalen. And then Dylan Gabriel putting up crazy stats and points in this offense. They let him walk. They kept a redshirt freshman, Jackson Arnold, who played in the bowl game and looked like a freshman in the bowl game. And they finally benched him against Tennessee. And they brought in Michael Hawkins Jr., who's now a true freshman, not even a redshirt freshman. They got even younger with less experience. And the numbers that I will tell you for Michael Hawkins, we sat here criticizing and being upset about, some of the freshman mistakes and the numbers from Lenore Sellers. Michael Hawkins makes Sellers look like a Heisman candidate. And this offense is bad. The numbers I will tell you for this offense, we come back for the next part of the show, staggeringly bad. So we will get to that here shortly. I appreciate you guys joining us. We got a good episode for you today, and I am excited to talk about this game. Like I said, before we get into the next part of the show, I do want to talk to you about our friends at FanDuel. You guys have heard me talk about them a million times. Listen, if you're an NFL fan, Get a big return to start this season with our friends at FanDuel.com. It's America's #1 sportsbook. If you want to go bet on the NFL, if you want to go bet on college, if you want to do any of that stuff, I am urging you to go do it through FanDuel, and now more than ever, because they have a tremendous opportunity, not even just with the bonus bets, which we'll get to in a second, but if you are like me and you want to make sure you have all your bases covered and you want to make sure you have every little bit of information possible, you got your notebook, you got your pencil and paper and all that kind of stuff out. If you are like me and you want to do that, you want to make sure you are using FanDuel for all of your betting purposes. They have everything you need in a one-stop shop, and they have it right where you place your bets. If you get a hunch in the middle of a game and you want a live bet, which I've told you guys before, sometimes that's where the most value is, okay? You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And now, like I've said before, you can get started with a $200 bonus after you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. Place a $5 bet. That's all it is. You get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. We are America's #1 Locked On South Carolina show. It's one of one, but still. We'll be back after this and go over some of these numbers that I keep telling you about. It's going to be very, very shocking. And it's so much worse for Oklahoma fans than you thought. But we will be right back. Locked On Gamecocks continues next. All right, let's get into this. I have told you over and over and over again the frustrations I have with Dowell Loggins. If you are an Oklahoma fan, the frustrations you have to have with the offensive coordinator in Norman are so much worse. They're so much more significant. And it's so bad. It is so bad. Let's go over these numbers again. And this is why I keep telling you the wrong team is favored. Okay, the wrong team is favored in this game. Oklahoma is averaging 24.3 points per game. Since they have made this change, the 2 games they have made this change, right? Texas, they had a week off for Texas, and they played Auburn at Auburn, right? It's not like they've gotten significantly better when they're at home. The teams that they have played, like this. All right, they opened the season with a 51-3 win against Temple. Okay, we're going to go back to that in a second. Then they played Houston, who a lot of people think is one of the worst teams in all of Power 4. They beat them 16-12. Then they beat Tulane 34-19. That game was very close towards the end. And then they lose to Tennessee. So they're 3-0. They lose to Tennessee 15-25. Okay. Now, in that game, that is when they make the change at quarterback to Michael Hawkins. The following week, they go to Auburn. Okay. And real quick, let's go back to that Temple score. Because that Temple score, I think, is what they all thought in Norman, they thought was going to be the norm. Right? No pun intended. 51-3. Guys, they had 6 turnovers in that game. Jackson Arnold had like 130 yards passing. Make sure I'm right on that. It was really, really bad. And for whatever reason, they've still been ranked, which is absurd to me. Yeah, Jackson Arnold in that first game, they won 51-3. He was 17 of 25 with 4 touchdowns and 141 total yards passing. That's just not going to get it done. Now, you look at what they've done since then, okay? And I'm looking at this like, okay, well, they've yet to run a ton of plays, right? Against Auburn, they only ran 47. Against Power 4 competition, they have yet to gain over 300 yards of offense. The highest they have had was against Auburn for 291. Now, let's keep in mind, they won that game 27-21. They had 3 field goals, I believe, in that game, or 2 field goals at least. But they scored 2 offensive touchdowns. One of the other touchdowns was a pick 6 to seal the game. They also scored on the first drive of that game. They scored a touchdown on a 48-yard scramble. So since that game, right, since that exact drive, Oklahoma's had 22 offensive possessions. 22. They have scored on 4 of them. 4. 3 field goals, 1 touchdown. By the way, one of the field goals against Auburn was late in that game when Auburn was down 24-21 and had to go for it on 4th and whatever on their own 20. Like, I mean, that's the only reason they even scored in that one, right? Like, they have not put up over 300 yards of offense in a game against Power 4 competition this season. Think about what I'm saying there about Oklahoma. How quickly and how far the mighty have fallen. An offensive juggernaut for a decade plus in college football. That's what we've identified Oklahoma as. They always have a quarterback. They always put up a ton of yards. Even when Lincoln Riley left and they brought in a defensive coach with Brent Venables, right? And here's the other part too, guys. This is a defense, by the way. I'm getting sidetracked, but I can't wait to say this any longer. This is a defense where I've heard Oklahoma fans say over and over and over again all offseason, oh my gosh, well, I mean, I know we're going to have an elite defense. It's year 3 under Venables. You know, that's what he always does. That's his MO. That's what he did at Clemson for a decade there and blah, blah, blah. I know we're going to have an elite defense. Then you start the season and you start seeing this. Well, they have 6 turnovers they forced against Temple, right? Which is, by the way, that's another reason why they are number 1 in turnover margin, because they had 6 in the first game. In the 5 since, they've had 8, which is normal. It's just a normal amount. Then you talk about like the since that first game especially, but like the season, you've seen these like fans be like, oh my gosh, like we finally got an elite defense, and what did it cost us? It was like it became like an ongoing joke on social media, and like it became a meme. Oh, we finally got a ridiculously good and elite defense, and what did it cost us? You don't have an elite defense. You don't rank in the top 9. You don't rank in the top 9 in most major statistical categories in the SEC. Like, I'm looking at it right now. You rank 9th or worse in rush defense, pass defense, and total defense in the SEC. 9th or worse. That's the bottom half. You don't rank in the top half. What are you good at? You better hope that the home field advantage makes up for all of the shortcomings that happen on the field. You better hope that everything that happens outside of the white lines somehow grossly impacts the stuff going on between the white lines. And listen, as a South Carolina person and as South Carolina fans, you guys know, like the crowd and the home field advantage can be huge. It can be huge. It better be. If you're an Oklahoma fan, it damn well better be. I mean, the on-field product has been so horribly bad. You are 4-2 this season, right? Lost by double digits to Tennessee, lost by 31 to Texas. Here's the thing. In the last 22 possessions for Oklahoma, 13 punts, 5 3-and-outs. By the way, like over half those are for 5 plays or less on the punts. There's like no sustained drives. 4 total scores, 3 of them are field goals, and 5 turnovers. Since you had that scramble against Auburn, you have scored 1 touchdown in 22 offensive possessions. 1 touchdown in 22 offensive possessions. And you're telling me this team is favored to beat South Carolina after what South Carolina just did in Tuscaloosa. By the way, think about the last part of that sentence. What they did in Tuscaloosa. Not what they did in Williams-Brice. Not what they did at home with home field advantage or under the lights of Willie B and a raucous crowd or what. Not any of that. On the road. Team's gone on the road twice this year. Boat race Kentucky. Should have beat Bama. The wrong team is favored. Just bottom line. Listen, like from a positive standpoint, yeah, they are number 1 in turnovers. Okay. They are dead last in third down conversions, converting 26.8% of their third downs. They are 15th in sacks allowed. That's only ahead of South Carolina, who we know has had an issue there. That might be the one that is the biggest one. And here's the other thing too. I brought up that one specific touchdown that they scored against Auburn for a reason. The reason why is it was a chunk play where Michael Hawkins Jr. got run. He's a good athlete. South Carolina's defense is good. They are not like Auburn. Like Auburn has some strengths and they've underperformed at times this year, whatever. But this defense is really, really good. You saw him bottle up Jalen Miller last week. You saw him bottle up that Alabama offense as a whole. Like, this is one of the best defenses in the conference for Oklahoma or for South Carolina. Michael Hawkins, outside of that one scramble he had for 48 yards in that game, right? 48 yards. By the way, that one play accounted for like 17% of their total yardage for the entire game. Okay. You got a 40, by the way, you had 68 yards. You had a 68-yard touchdown drive on the first possession for Oklahoma at Auburn, and you still somehow managed to not get 300 yards in the game. That's almost impossible to do. Okay. But they don't do a good job protecting the quarterback. Okay. They do not do a good job protecting the quarterback. And on top of that, the only other things you need to be really concerned about, they're not good on third downs. They can't stay on the field. They are 15th in the conference in sacks allowed, and that's a recipe for disaster against what they're about to face with South Carolina, with arguably the best two edge rushers in the entire country, not even mentioning what's in the middle there, right? And then chunk plays, 20-plus yard plays. Oklahoma is not only last in the SEC, they are second to last in the country. They have through 6 games, guys. 6 games. Think about what we know from Oklahoma teams in the past. This year's Oklahoma team, chunk plays, 20 yards or more. They have 13 total on the season. 13 total on the season. That is 133rd out of 134 teams in the country. The wrong team is favored. And I will say it over and over and over again for the next 48 hours until it's kickoff. The wrong effing team is favored in this game. I'm fired up. It is going to be a really, really good game. Let's get into something that I don't know if I'm fired up about or what, but I do know that I have to talk to you guys about a new sponsor that we have, and I'm very excited about it. We're going to talk about our friends at Hims. And you guys, if you are an adult in this day and age, you have seen Hims commercials and what they do, and they do a tremendous job for men's health and men's health products. Listen, guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and we always want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have the time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Listen, Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. We all know that can be an embarrassing thing. It is something that men have struggled with talking about for a long time. Men's health and your sexual health are things that should not go untreated or unnoticed or untalked about. That is why Hims is changing the game, okay? Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. Locked On is one word. That is HIMS, HIMS.com/locked on for your personalized ED treatment options. HIMS.com/locked on. The products mentioned, by the way, are chewable compounded products with which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA, but prescriptions required an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Do you like how I read that fast, just like all medical commercials? Go check out hims.com today. When we come back, me, we are going to finish out this show for part 1 of our Thursday episode. Thank you for joining us on Locked On Gamecocks. It continues next. All right. Got a HIMS ad read. We are feeling strong. Listen, close out this episode by once again, I'm going to go over just a couple of things here. I'm telling you, we will get more into some of the numbers of South Carolina and the matchup itself. But I'm telling you, man, this is a mismatch. I'm looking at covers.com right now. Great site that shows just some information like betting. Michael Hawkins, his numbers. Listen, against Auburn, he was 10 of 15. He had over 10 yards per attempt, but he was 10 of 15. That's not going to happen against South Carolina. It's just not. But against Texas, he had to throw the ball 30 times, so they could not run the football. He had a 4.9 yards per attempt. Here's the thing, guys. The South Carolina defense, that's the thing that people don't understand. I'm looking at the offense for Oklahoma. Total yards per game, 125th in the country, 288 per game. Yards per play, 128. This is out of 134 teams. They're in the bottom 10 for both. Rush yards, 101. Yards per rush, 112. Passing yards, 123rd. Yards per completion, 132. Third worst in the country. Yards per attempt, 127. Seventh worst in the country. QB rating, 108. Now, why don't we go ahead and look at this? How about this? They're 124th in the country in sacks allowed per game. 96 in scoring offense. By the way, they rank 100th or worse in second quarter and third quarter. That's a position where South Carolina can really take advantage of this. In the second half of the game, the start to that second half. You guys hear all the time about how important it is for teams to have that last 2 minutes and the first 2 minutes and kind of sandwich those drives back to back, which that's why one of the reasons why you defer to the second half. Man, it is the fourth worst third quarter scoring offense in the country. And you guys know I break that down all the time, how important it is in specific parts of the game, first quarter, first half, third quarter. That's a really big opportunity for South Carolina. And you know that especially after last week, man, you saw Dow Loggins, Shane Beamer make adjustments at halftime and say, listen, we're going to run the ball down their throats and we're going to put Bama in a very precarious situation by coming in here and saying, listen, now you're trailing and we also took 9 minutes off the clock. This is a team that cannot score, cannot sustain drives in any shape or fashion, form or fashion. I don't know the cliche saying. You guys know what I'm talking about, though. South Carolina, I just told you that Oklahoma's 124th in the country in sacks allowed. South Carolina's 11th in the country in sacks. They're also 12th in the country in interceptions gained. Listen, I will say the one thing for Oklahoma, they're like third in the conference in penalties per game. That's the only advantage they really have. But I told you all their offensive numbers. Let's look at these defensive numbers for South Carolina. I know one of our listeners reached out to me last week. Was like, "Hey man, can you do a deep dive on the defense?" Still need to do it. Maybe I'll do it for tomorrow and get that done or later today. We'll see. But listen, those are all the numbers for Oklahoma's offense. How about South Carolina's defense? 20th in the country in yards allowed, 17th in yards per play, 34th in rushing yards allowed. It's 110 per game. Just that's it. They're top 20 in the country in yards per rush allowed, 22nd in the country in completion percentage, 14th in the country in QB rating. Guys, this is a mismatch. This is a mismatch in favor of South Carolina. This is I'm telling you right now, man, This is a mismatch in favor of South Carolina. If this game was in Williams-Brice or even on a neutral field, Carolina would be favored by at least 3.5 to 4 points, probably a touchdown, in my opinion. If the logos were removed from the helmets and you just looked at the actual stats and the numbers, like we should be doing, this is a mismatch. South Carolina can win this game, and South Carolina will win this game for a number of reasons, but a lot of it is the story I just told you with these numbers. So that is all for the first part of Thursday's episode. I appreciate you guys joining us. We're going to get this up and going just like Hims does as well. Hey, there it is. I appreciate you guys joining along. I hope you have a fantastic start to your Thursday. We're about 49 hours from kickoff. Love you guys. I'm pumped up. Should be a fun one. We will talk to you a little bit later for the second part of our Thursday recording. Go Cox.